Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical neuropsychologist, and I'm also the father of a couple of ADHD kids, the husband of an ADHD wife. I'm married into an ADHD family. Um, and when I started out with all of this, well, getting married, having children, all that, I knew nothing about ADHD because, well, frankly, ADHD wasn't around until 1980. And then they changed it. Well, it was ADD back in those days. And then somebody reason they put an H in. So now we got ADHD. But now we've also got a bunch of research and a bunch of new instruments that help us measure ADHD and measure, the different components to it. But one of the things we know is that although medication is usually the first step, and especially with children, um, and there's some research suggesting that ADHD, if you start your ADHD or on medication early enough, um, his or her brain will change over time. And not that's not for everybody, but that's one of the side effects they notice that's a good one. So but we also know that frequently, um, way more than half of folks never continue their medication. Um, but the biggest piece of handling all of this, I think, is that I mean, I remember when I had started having ADHD kids, and I had no idea what the heck. Well, I didn't know what was going on, and I mean, by that time I'm a psychologist, and I'm supposed to know what's going on, and uh, had no clue, and I was not happy. I immediately started reading everything I could get my hands on, going to workshops, seminars, all that kind of stuff, and learning something about ADHD. But one of the things that is become even clearer to me, first of all, your child is your child your entire life, until they're, well, till one of you leaves this mortal coil. You have a relationship, and ADHDers have rarely have a lifestyle that's just, is sort of up and down and up and down. And so this relationship that you have is very important. And ADHDers get a lot more supervision than neurotypical kids. They get more critical comments. I've read somewhere that by age 12, the average ADHD child has received 20,000 critical comments more than the neurotypical kid. And when I talk to my ADHDers, they, oh yeah, teacher, oh yeah, every year the teacher, and then so on. But so as a parent, this may not be the first thing you think about. Most of the time we're thinking, how do I get him to stop having temper tantrums, or uh, how do I get her to make sure she turns in her homework when she does it, and so on. There are lots of things. Uh, but one of the big things that will become more and more important over time is trust. You have to teach your child, show your child trust, and because it's really important. Trust by itself probably affects the success of treatment, the success of any intervention, the success in school, success in life, basically, is they have a trusting relationship with you. And this is probably more important than making sure they never have a temper tantrum again, because I tell you, it's probably not going to happen. Uh, if your child doesn't trust you, it is going to be a nightmare. You're not, if they're always looking at you like, what is he or she going to do now? why don't they trust me at all? Which is one of the points is you have to trust them, but you can start to do that with some specific things we'll talk about a little bit more. But they've been, like I said, they've been corrected, they've been redirected, they've been disappointed. They are asked to take a very nice brain that does a whole lot of things very well and put it into a system that was designed to to educate the compliant people who will sit quietly for hours and do what they're told and memorize stuff and then regurgitate it on the exams or the SATs or the LSATs or whatever you got. And that's not what ADHDers are best at, okay? So the trust thing is really important because they've got a harder row. They have to work harder to adjust to a system that wasn't really designed for them. Okay, I mean, there are some schools that are making some moves, some learning by problem solving or learning by project. Those kinds of things are really helpful and ADHDers tend to excel at those. When they get to the university, however, it's back to the same old read the book, listen to the lecture, take the test. Okay, next course. And that's not their strong suit. That's just not. But, okay, so for you as the parent, that fact that they're in a system that doesn't really fit them, and that means they're okay, most people don't know about working memory. Okay, we know about long-term memory and short-term memory basically, and that's about it. But there's another kind that's called working memory. And working memory is, if I tell you to, or if I tell my son to, I'd like you to do this, this, and this, odds are he'll get one of them done, but he may totally space on the other two. I mean, I've had mothers in my office, just, I'm going to tell him to clean up his room, and he just goes up there and does nothing. Or I find him, he's watching TV. Well, I have a question about whether a kid needs a TV in his bedroom, but that's all right. But the idea is two things. I mean, you tell your kid to clean up his room without telling him how to do it, there's going to be a problem. My wife talks about that all the time. She said, my son, clean up your room. But I don't know what to do. And well, you know how an ADHDer's room can look. So she said, well, first, pick up all your clothes and then put them in the dirty clothes. Then pick up all your toys. And she just went through it step by step by step. And of course, one time wasn't going to do it. Oh, she had to, remind him, okay, you finished that up. That's good. Now let's do the toys. And maybe we'll even do some dusting later. Anyway, but so they have problems with working memory. They have a tendency to get overwhelmed easily because they're looking at first grade and they're trying to think of everything they're supposed to be doing right now for first grade, and they don't do a good job of breaking it down into manageable pieces. And that's another thing you can teach your child. But that's one of the things that makes it more likely that they're going to have problems. And of course, one of the things that happens when you get a lot of criticism and a lot of advice on how to do things better and so on, is that a lot of kids have become hyper-focused on any criticism or any implied criticism, because all of a sudden they're so sensitive that everything seems like um, a criticism, everything. I mean, you sometimes I'm amazed at how big an issue that is. Uh, that they see. You can be mad because you've let the garage get out of control, and they'll hear you fuming or whatever you're doing, and they'll think that you're criticizing them. That's why we have what's called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is a little suggestion to improve can be interpreted as an attack. You don't ever think I'm good enough. You don't, da 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 da. It and now, and I'll tell you, if you've ever seen somebody who's got real bad RSD and you'll think, well, that is the angriest SOB I've ever seen. What the heck? And underneath, there's this little kid who's been trained that he can't measure up, that he can't do what everybody else can do in the world easily. It's hard for him to do. So that's a huge issue. And then we go to the inconsistency. Okay, there are a lot of reasons why these kiddos are inconsistent. They're inconsistent because they get overwhelmed. They get shook. Oh, I don't know. Am I, that kind of thing. And it depends on also a lot on you and how you carry things out. Okay, but they're always focused. They're ready. They have the hunter's mind. That's the one that's always looking for danger everywhere. And then you've had years of criticism, and boy, what a combination. And one of the results of all this criticism is that they tend to start feeling like I'm the problem. There's, something wrong with me. It's like the book, probably the most famous book on ADHD is, you mean I'm not lazy, crazy, or stupid? Because that's what these kids start thinking. And it's not that they're told you're stupid. It's that they're criticized for making a lot of errors about something, on something. So that's the bad things that can happen. Okay. Now, the biggest thing, the biggest benefit of developing a good, trusting relationship with your child is that they'll come to you when things go wrong. They don't just try to hide it and keep you from knowing about it, because you know what happens then. It gets so bad that somebody, a teacher, a coach, an instructor will, and hopefully not the police, but sometimes it goes that far. They have this tendency to try to not try, they don't want to hear any more criticism. They've heard it already. They don't, they want everything to be cool. They don't, and especially if your favorite bad emotion is anger, if you're one of those, it gets even worse, because then there's even more of a reason for them to try to hide things. But you want them to trust you so that they come to you when it's still a little problem, when it's still, something that you can solve easily, rather than one that's starting to cost a lot of time and possibly money. So you want that. You want that to be the focus. Is just to build trust. Always you're building trust. And one of the things you can do is they want to know that you recognize some of their positive abilities. That you've got to really find some things they're good at and praise the heck out of them. Okay, he'll just grow up thinking he's everything's easy. Well, no, probably not. Uh, but they want you to understand that sometimes they're going to make mistakes, and it's not that they're just totally screw ups. It's that they are trying and that they have a little harder time with some things than a neurotypical kid. Okay, and this is, this is just small stuff. You heard the line, probably catch them being good. Well, that's kind of what you need to do. And it doesn't have to be huge stuff. You're not going to wait until they win a gold medal in the Olympics before you say, hey, nice job. You're going to find some small things that they have done well, that they have, that even done adequately. It doesn't have to be that they have done something that's going to win them a gold medal. I already said that, but or a Nobel Peace Prize or things like that. It's small things. Oh, hey, you did a good job making your bed this morning. Thanks. That kind of thing. And it's not the big stuff. It's not waiting for big stuff. It's catching little things. And so we feel he or she is feeling some competence that they have done. They've tried, and their efforts were recognized, and that's all you need to be doing. So, so then they start to, they feel like, oh, mom, dad, they see that I can do some stuff, and then you want to build on that as much as you can, like what Michael Phelps, his mother was a teacher, and she got him into swimming, and his whole life changed over that. I mean, he was not doing well academically, but he was able to swim. He was able. That was a strength he had. He was built for it. He did the work, and his whole life is still centered around swimming. Okay, let's talk about some specifics on how you can build trust. One is you need to follow through. Say what you mean, say what you're going to do, and then do it. I mean, don't, oh, we're going to go bike riding this weekend, and then, oops, I'm sorry, I forgot that the grass was going to grow this week, and so I got to do that instead of, you have to be aware that they pay more attention to you than you think they do, and they pay more attention to every adult in their space. So it's kind of it is actually hypervigilance, but like if you say, I will do this in 5 minutes, do it in 5 minutes. I don't feel like doing it right now, maybe an hour or so later. They've got to trust what you say is what you're going to do, and that's what you mean, okay? And the other thing is that you have to show them how to screw up and handle it. Sometimes you're not going to be the best person you want to be. Sometimes you're going to get angry. Sometimes you're going to mess something up, and sometimes you're going to stick a screwdriver in a socket somewhere and shock yourself. There are all sorts of things. And especially when you're dealing with your child, your ADHD child, you need to say, I'm sorry I did that. I was mad. I was angry at my boss at work today, and I kind of took it out on you. And I'm sorry. Just do what you'd expect any other caring adult to do. Be that good guy. And then you've got a kid that's getting a lot of criticism. So when something happens, maybe it's even a good thing, but most of the time it's something that's not real good. Don't act like you're a cop on TV, trying to prove that your child committed a crime. Just to go for the more, let's, I don't know for sure what happened just then, but tell me what it was like for you. Tell me, what you were thinking about, just kind of tell me what happened. I don't know, or when you got into that fight with Jeremy, tell me what happened. Don't say, "Well, why'd you do that?" That sort of thing. You will definitely not improve your relationship. You will have some problems, and sometimes you've got to have some just one-on-one time with your child. Don't have to be doing anything specifically. If they do something that you like doing and that sort of thing, fine, do it together. That's, you know, the other thing that tends to happen with an ADHD child, and the parents are always checking the homework or wondering if they did the homework, or one of the things I never thought of is turning it in. Because I guarantee you, if you don't pay attention to that, you're going to get a call from the teacher, and call, right? You'll get an email from the teacher saying, your Bruce hasn't been turning in his homework for about a month now. And so you go, what? And then you look in his book bag, unless he's in one of those schools where they have to have the clear ones, and you will have all that homework will be crumpled up at the bottom of the briefcase. Happened with my child. So, and I was amazed. I was like, what the heck? As much work as we put into doing it, and then you don't bother turning it in? I couldn't even figure out how that could happen. But it did. And so what you need to do is figure out what was going on, figure out. And don't forget, when he's upset or she's upset, you don't want to jump on that. That's, oh man, yeah, that happened. And you felt bad about it. I know, man, I could tell. And, don't start solving the problem too fast, okay? And some of us are, oh, next time that happens, you do this and this and this, and the kids don't, No. Let him process the emotion. Let her process the feelings. Let them think it through. Think about it a little bit. Try to, go with the lessons learned kind of approach. What happened? That was I must have felt, you must have been really angry. Anyway, so don't jump right on the emotion and try to fix it. Okay, and like I've said before, catch them being good. They don't get too much of that. I'm not sure there's such a thing as too much of that. I know my generation, my parents worried about that. Oh, you don't want to tell him he's good all the time. He'll get an inflated sense of himself, and he won't be able to do the work when it gets tough. Silly things, aren't we? People that we keep trying to restrict the amount of pleasure and joy we have in life. Oh, can't have too much of that. I'm honest, I don't think there's a quota. Okay. So trust is a long game. This is going to be going on your entire life. Actually, if you're pretty good, you should be doing the same stuff with all your relationships, including your spouse. But This is the biggie for an ADHD kid. They've got to trust that you're in their corner no matter what. Okay? They're got to trust that you're there, that you understand them better than almost anybody else in the world, and that you're on their team, you're on their side. And giving them that while they're young makes it a lot easier for them to have other relationships where they're comfortable, you know, with a boss at work, with with a potential spouse, all of that stuff. You get them trained that there are people in the world you can trust. There are people in the world who care about you. There are people in the world who know about what it's like to have troubles in different situations, and we need to trust that, and you need to train that. And like I said, it's not one big fancy solution. Take my 4-week webinar, and we will train you and all that stuff. It's not. It doesn't really work with anybody, really. You have to keep going. You have to keep doing it a little bit at a time, every day. And by the way, it's all right to be nice to yourself too. Okay. Okay. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. Didn't change during this session, and this is Dr. G's ADHD chat, and we're here trying to make the world safer for ADHDers. And I have a website, terrygingrassphd.com, and you can sign up for a couple of things there and get my newsletter, which seems to be going okay. It's about different. It has different topics than the podcast, but it's well, I'm not going to write for hours. It's about probably 500, 600 words. It's about a page most of the time. It's, we know people have problems with time and all that sort of thing. Anyway, so you can sign up for that on my website. You can also sign up for a intake interview. I mean, I call it intake because I keep forgetting what the fancy word is for it, but it's just that, it's a freebie, 20 minutes or so, and we see if we can stand each other and maybe even help each other out. Okay, I'll catch you next week, and let's do what we can to make the world safer for ADHD.